Good morning, it's AL-BINO. How y'all doing this morning? So, real quick thing here with a couple admin notes. Sorry, it's been a while since I've been on. Have had some challenges in regards to the steps forward that my fiance and I were going to take in regards to estate matters with her family, property matters with her and I, property matters in regards to the property that we were going to acquire in the future. We're still together. I'm not going to go too much into the drama because obviously that would be unwise on my part. This is what I know. Is that up until a few weeks ago, everything was in the clear. There is a certain member of the family who is just not a nice person. And if this person decides that they're going to stir stuff up or get snotty with people, they're married into the family, but the person that they're married to, they have kind of I guess you could say a psychological draw, and if they decide they want to cause problems, and it's not just me that they've caused problems with other people in their family and in my fiance's family before in the past. So now we're going to have to work around that individual. Or we're going to have to work around the problem that individual fomented. That's all I can say about that. It's going to cost both myself and my fiance potentially a lot of money to do this. But we feel that in order for us to have our life together, there are certain things that we're going to have to do. As a matter of fact, I'm going to Wyoming right now to talk to some people about future things that we're going to get set up. And I have to be very careful here because we're driving on ice. But I'm on my way to Cheyenne right now. Have an appointment. We're going to move in some different ways. And this time, the decisions are going to be made. Well, one of her children is because this individual has always been kind to us. This individual will probably be scheduled in, I guess you could say, on the future plans that my fiance and I have, because this person has been a good person, and it's one of those people like, okay, you know what, kind of once we get things going and once we build a legacy, we're not going to be here forever. You've been the one that has been kind to us. You have been the one that's been respectful. You have been the one that has shown yourself to be trustworthy. So therefore, when we start acquiring things and when we start doing things from here forward, yes, my fiance and I are going to separate our business from the other families, so that way something like this will never happen again. But this one individual will likely be included in the estate because this individual has proven themselves to be a decent human being and very hardworking very intelligent, skilled human being as well. Somebody that, if you knew this person, you'd be like, yes, I absolutely trust you. So that's one piece. That's kind of what we've been dealing with over the last couple weeks. It's not been fun. Also, the piece that I was talking about as far as civil conflict or internal conflict, administratively within the political system and on the street. I believe that that's still going to happen. I believe we're kind of in the calm before the storm. Before something breaks out, I believe the left has been dealt a serious blow, but I also believe that cornered animals bite the hardest. Okay, so that's up and down on that. Just crossed into Nebraska. Yay. Maybe not immediately, but I do foresee street violence. I do foresee administrative subversion. But this time around, I think those in the right are aggravated and pissed off enough to where they're not going to take it laying down anymore, and it has the potential to escalate, because I think this time around the people on the right understand that sometimes the best way to make somebody stop is to make somebody stop. To quote a line from the movie Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze. Good line, dog. Be nice, be nice, be nice until it's time to not be nice. I think we're at the it's time to not be nice stage with certain people on the right. Okay? I don't think that the left is going to stop until they're literally forced to stop. Okay? Kind of like the Japanese and the Germans during World War II didn't stop until they were faced with, hey, we're going to firebomb or nuke your country off the frickin' map if you don't knock it off. Guess what? We won. Hands down, we won when it came to that, okay? So I think that's the dynamic that is going to have to go to between the right and the left. Okay? It's just, if the left doesn't stop, or if they keep trying to, it's going to happen. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but it's going to happen. Okay? I think the right is done being Neville Chamberlain. I think they're gearing up to be Winston Churchill. That's just my observation. I think it's still on its way. I think this is like the winter of 1939 and 1940. And then it really kicked off, okay? And if you want the reference on that, or the space between June and August of 1914, I think it's kind of that type of phase, right? I think that's kind of what's going on right now. Now it's cold outside. No, you don't want to wear your jacket in the car when it's cold outside, you got the heater on. Yes, the heater goes out, obviously, yes, but actually, when you're in cold weather like this, it's very smart. Sorry, bearskin people. It's very smart to have layers. So, like, when I'm in a warm space like this, I'll go down to my street clothes. And then as I get out, I'll put on maybe 2 layers, right? And then, say, for example, I'm outside in the cold and I've got 2 or 3 layers on and I start working. As I warm up, I'll shed a little bit, because what you don't want to do in the cold is sweat. Because if you sweat in the cold, you get wet. And then what happens when you get wet? Then you get colder, and then you can't get warmed back up. You soak your clothes. So it's just not a good idea to do that. It's also a good idea, I've got extra clothes, or like extra socks and stuff, extra shirts with me, so that way if I do get a little sweaty, or my feet get sweaty, I'll change them out. That's just a little life lesson for you. That's how men dress when they're dealing with the environment. Smart. Even in the truck, when the weather gets like this, I'll carry like extra food, extra water, a change of socks, maybe even a shirt, and a change of pants, and a few jackets. So that way, if something gets wet, or if I start sweating or something, I could put on fresh, dry stuff. I'll dress in like a hoodie, a jacket, another jacket, and some gloves. As I move throughout the day, yes, it's a pain in the ass to do, but I can adjust as I need to. So, today's podcast, and I wrote this stuff down. First topic I want to address, and this is a hot topic for me, and this really upset me. And this is going to you, Elon Musk, and Vivek Ramaswamy. Okay? This pushing for H1B visas for tech workers from outside of this country. It doesn't matter if they're programmers, it doesn't matter if they're engineers, it does not matter if they're on the factory floor. That is unacceptable. That's not what we voted for. And you will stop this. Or we're going to put you on blast right here online. I already briefly touched this issue. But here's what needs to happen. And you will do this, or you're going to be put on blast. And then there will be a movement within the conservative movement to oust you. And this is not a threat of violence. But it doesn't matter if you do have $500 billion. Yes, what you did for X was awesome. Thank you very much. But if you continue to push this, if this happens on the right and in this country, people like me will jump up online and we will destroy your reputation. And we will push you out of the movement. And because of that, it will be difficult for you to do business going forward, because then you will be known as a turncoat. Do not do it, either one of you. Here's what you're going to do. And we expect you to do this. You are going... Now, if there's a shortage after all this, all right, maybe bring some people in. I understand. We want talent. But you're first going to go to the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and Space Force. In particular, maybe even the Marine Corps, where it applies. If they have trained technicians available, which there are a few, not as many as in the other branches. And for these individuals that are ETSing or retiring, and they're in fields like SATCOM, they're in fields like switching, networking, they're in IT fields, they're aircraft mechanics, they're pilots, they're civil engineers, whatever, right? And they have that level of training. For example, when I came out of the military in 2012, I had 17 years of component level and various different types of network programming type stuff, and Milstar, and strategic satellite, and tactical satellite. I've been on the development teams for a number of different systems. I was an expert in RF propagation and all that stuff, right? RF engineering, RF technical, as an enlisted man, okay? We could do things down to the component level. We were training all that theory, everything else. For 17 years I did this. Over 4 combat deployments, as well as being, because everybody in the Army is an infantryman first, just like everybody in the Marine Corps is the same way, and everybody, right, okay? So I had 17 and a half years, almost 17 years of doing this, plus 4 and a half, almost 5 years of combat experience doing this, and a whole year overseas doing this, 5 years in a strategic environment doing all this, 2 or 3 years on test beds and development beds doing this. It's some pretty high-speed shit. But when I got out of the military in 2012, those fields were impossible for me to get into. That's one of them. One. 2, a lot of that stuff was tied in with government contracts, with some of the crap that was going on with the Obama administration. And I chose to walk away from that because I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to be involved in stuff like that. But even in other versions or other parts of the tech sector where I could have filled a role, it was not available to me as a highly trained and proficient, multiple years of experience, multiple hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of training, multiple situations where it was put together, just wasn't available to me. Why? Because of what you're pushing right now. And because during 2012, going forward, for the next few years, it was a terrible economy, it destroyed my life. But yet, we have people like you two knuckleheads, saying, well, we need more visas to bring these people in from somewhere else, like India and Vietnam. But yet, for several years now, at least the last 20 years, you had guys like me who have way more training and experience. We may not always have the degrees, but we have way more training and experience equal to or greater than as veterans, and we can't even get our foot in the door. That will stop. And that will be where you start recruiting first. And that needs to be codified into law. Republican Congress, Donald Trump. Matter of fact, if we can't do it, that needs to be a constitutional amendment. After that, Once you've exhausted that, then you need to open up training centers, and you guys have the money to do it, where you're going to take these young people coming out of high school or university, depending on the level of training that they need, and you're going to recruit them first, and you're going to train them. American citizens first. Veterans first, American citizens coming out of school, looking for a job or a trade, at secondary, post-secondary, that you will do this first. You will do this first. And we will see legislation on this. Congress, Trump, and you're going to knock off this, oh, we got to bring people in from these other, no, that's going to stop. And if you continue to push it, we're going to light your ass up, starting online. And you will be pushed out. We don't care how much money you have. We own this country. This is what we voted for. You got all this stuff going with Doge and everything else. How much money would it save, and how much money would it generate instead of bringing all these people in and having them send half their paycheck back home? You give these people, particularly highly trained veterans and young men, particularly young men, but young women too, where appropriate, opportunities. If they're not veterans, you will do these things first. Enough with importing labor when we have enough people in this country who are smart enough and who can be trained to do this, simply because you don't want to spend some of your $500 billion to do the right thing. You will stop this, and that will stop right now, today. Or we're going to come up here and we're going to light your ass up. And yes, I have a very small channel. I do. It's a growing channel, slowly, but it's a small channel. But I do have connections to very large podcasters. And I do have their ear. And I believe, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty certain, about 90% certain, they agree with me on this. And if I put this in their ear, they're going to put it out, because they also believe this is bullshit too. It will stop. That's enough on that, okay? Now, moving right along. Speaking of migrants, Trump, Congress, Doge. If you're in this country as an immigrant, regardless of legal status, unless you are sick or disabled, you will not receive Trump, Congress, Doge, any public assistance for health care, for food, for none. That's for American citizens when they need it. And able-bodied American citizens, you're only going to get that for the length of your employment. And oh, by the way, you will continue to look for employment while you're on these programs. And if you do not, you're done. In particular, those of you who are in this country and are undocumented. And if you're in this country and you're undocumented, guess what? You're going to get up on out of here. That's what we voted for. Come home and, yes, start with those who are causing problems first. But we voted for Trump. He hired you, and you will do your job. Or just like I said with Vivek and Elon regards this H1B visa problem, we are going to start making noises if you don't. Okay? When we went to the polls this year, we were absolutely serious about it, and we are not playing games. Okay? Doesn't matter if I'm a white guy saying this, or a black guy saying this, or a Hispanic guy saying this, or a Jewish guy. That's what we voted for you to do, and that's what's going to happen. Period. End of story. Okay? Now, I'm going to get into something that's very, very, very delicate. And I actually got this listed as 1 and 5 on my list. Actually, 1, 4, and 5. But, yeah. I brought this up as a comment in numerous podcasts with other larger podcasters. But I'm going to make this noise myself today. Okay? The Violence Against Women Act was put in place because of domestic violence. Now, that's not to say that it is okay for men to assault their women and their family unprovoked. Or because they're drunk, they're mentally ill, or they've got a substance abuse problem. Okay, those things are not okay. Not okay. And those people should face consequences for them. Okay? Likewise, women who do the same thing to their men, or provoke them, or mentally torture them, or emotionally torture them, they also need to face consequences, because even though they may not be capable of physical abuse, and oftentimes they are, abuse is abuse. So, President Trump, Congress, administration, we demand to see a Fraud Against Men Act. We demand it. Fair is fair. If there's going to be a Violence Against Women Act, that's fine. But we need to see a Fraud Against Men Act. And what does this mean? This means that it needs to be made illegal for women to emotionally, mentally, or even physically, or financially manipulate men and abuse men for fiduciary gain, or play games with them that would cause damage, significant damage in these men's lives. And we need to start discussing what appropriate civil and criminal penalties could be put in place for this. This includes changing divorce laws. But marriage laws, generally speaking, have been a state's issue. And up until 50 years ago, that worked fairly well. But the boomers, actually started before the boomers, but the boomers really pushed it, okay? And this third wave, fourth wave feminism, right? Which, in my observation, in my current opinion, right now, all feminism is Jezebelism. All of it. Starting with the 19th Amendment. But we'll get there in a minute, okay? That's not to denigrate women's status as human beings. As human beings, they have the same rights as men. But they have different but equal things going on here, and we're going to have to start having those discussions. But no-fault divorce, and I partook of this, and I was wrong in doing it, but it also was used against me in an extremely destructive way. Almost destroyed my life. My second marriage. But no-fault divorce has got to go. The whole premise of a no-fault lawsuit where somebody cannot defend themselves or fight the lawsuit, just the whole thing by itself is highly unconstitutional. It does not matter if it's a civil or criminal case. When somebody is being sued or prosecuted, they have constitutional rights by which they can fight back and defend themselves. In no-fault divorce, that's not afforded to them. Okay? So, even just on a constitutional principle, it's wrong. You can take any major religion in this world and look at their rules and their opinions on this. Any of them. Be it the Abrahamic religions, be it the Eastern religions, they all share the same opinion on this, and it's wrong. This is why I call it Jezebelism. Because 80 to 90% of marriages are destroyed by women acting outside of their lane. And in doing so, they're actually breaking the laws that founded this country. And they're using the judicial system to do that. That's got to stop. Absolutely has to stop. Both ways. That needs to be put into the Fraud Against Men Act. Just like things like, paternity fraud. Just like things like mental or emotional manipulation. All kinds of that absolutely needs to be put in that law. And that law needs to be made. Some of these things need to be made constitutional amendments. Okay? But that needs to be done. Enough is enough. Okay? Speaking of constitutional amendments, I'm actually going through these topics really fast. The more that this debauchery and the more that the breakdown of this society goes on, and the more that people are showing out, the more it is my opinion that we need to repeal the 19th Amendment. And this is just my personal view, but I can prove it. Anybody who wants to question this, I want you to go look at social, political, and demographic type stuff in history in this country since 1920, when that amendment became effective. What you're going to see will prove my point. I don't believe that women possess the right mental equipment, by and large, overall, to participate in a civil environment where they are making decisions for other people as well as themselves. Men, over history, clearly have demonstrated this as the heads of households, as going to war, as doing all kinds of things. Most of the things that men do as adults, even if they're incredibly selfish, but most of the things that men do as adults, even as they're incredibly selfish, let's say that we have a man who lives completely as a bachelor, is not interested in having a family or having a wife or anything like that outside of his professional life. In his personal life, he's that way. But most men, even in their professional lives, choose occupations which greatly serve other people. So, even if they block that off in their professional life, their instinct is still going to drive them, more often than not, to do that or to have that outlet even in another way, even professionally. So, there is absolutely no way. But, and okay, yeah, women work in HR and they teach kids. Okay, that's great. And that does have social impact, but not to the degree that men do. They don't, okay? The only thing a woman will sacrifice her life for is for her children. Men will sacrifice their lives for their children, their wives, their neighbor, an innocent child that's a stranger, somebody who they thought had been done dishonorably. Men will instinctively get in fights over stuff like that. So, given a man's propensity to trend toward acting not just for himself, but also to the benefit of those outside of himself and to the benefit of the bigger picture, it is my firm belief that men only should be entrusted with making civil decisions just because of the way that they are, including being able to logically make civil decisions to the benefit and protection of the women and the children in their society. And up until 1920, by and large, that was the trend. Men don't go to war unless they have something to protect. Okay. So back during the Middle Ages, men were pressed into service and they were pressed into the draft historically in Western. Okay, right. But even once they got out on the battlefield, even if they didn't have a choice to pick up arms and they were pressed into doing so, if they didn't have anything to fight for, once they got on that battlefield, they wouldn't fight. But if they had something to fight for back at home, even if they were pressed into service to do so, they would fight. So there goes how men sometimes have. Okay, even if they didn't have a choice as to whether or not they were going to be under arms, if they had something to fight for at home, they would still fight. If they didn't, the first opportunity they had, they would lay down their arms. So that's just the facts, okay? You cannot argue that, period. So because men are capable of doing that, guess what? They should be the ones that have the right to vote, or to have the right to vote. the debate also should be between property owners or people who are employed in military veterans. Who should have the right to vote? Some days I think it's property owners. Some days I think that's too exclusive. So I think, okay, people who are employed. Some days, if I'm really on a tear, okay, only people who served in the military should have the right to vote. Either of the three is probably a good approach. My general medium trend is those who are employed at the bare minimum. And I'm not talking about somebody who's like been unemployed for a year. So let's say, for example, you got somebody who wants the right to vote, but they've only had a job for like 1 year of the past 4. And outside of that, they've been living off the system or living in somebody's house and not paying rent. They've just been a sponge other than that. That individual should not have the right to vote. They should. At the very least. Versus somebody, let's say he's been employed 3 of the last 5 years and he's caught in a recession. But the majority of his adult life, he's been responsible and had tried to maintain or tried to be a productive member of society. Okay, that person can have the right to vote. As a man. As a man. Because they have skin in the game. They're not voting for their own selfish draw from the treasury. My opinion, and actually this is more fact, the only individuals who should have a right to be on public assistance or draw public money indefinitely are those who are retired military, disabled veterans, and those individuals who are proven to be mentally or physically disabled beyond the point of reasonably being able to do any type of productive work. That's it. And maybe those who have a majority of their time being members of the workforce and are temporarily unable to secure gainful employment and generate an income for themselves. But the caveat to that is while they're receiving assistance, it's limited, and they continuously must prove that they are trying to regain gainful employment. That's it. Everybody else, non-citizens, permanent dependents, cut them off. We're done. That's what it needs to be. And necessity is the mother of invention. I guarantee you that even though these people will become violent and fight and start trouble and everything else, eventually those permanent dependents, once they're cut off within about 90 days, they will get off the couch and go find something or die. As hard as it is, and as brutal as that seems, that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. You want to save money? That's the way to do it. Social Security Security, I think George W. Bush caught a lot of hell with that because he wanted to take that and privatize it. I think for those who are already on it, I think, okay, yeah, we need to continue to find a way to make sure we do right by those people, because we did make a promise to them. But my generation and down, we may take a hit for this Generation X, but you know what? Generation X, I think, would be able to swallow it. We would. Because my generation, if you look at what happened during the War on Terror, my generation has proven itself to be willing to make sacrifices for the good of others. Okay? It's going to suck for us. And we're late in the game. And the older millennials, too, those millennials born before 88, 89, they kind of are the same way. And they'll do it, too, because they're not stupid. But yeah, from here forward, it does need to be privatized. And those paying into that, I think we should go to the Singapore model. And the Singapore model is this. The Singapore model is everybody is required by law to have a certain amount taken out of their paycheck, and then it's put in a diversified private portfolio to where the government can't touch it. And Singapore doesn't have a Social Security trust fund problem or Medicare trust fund problem, but yet their old people are able to retire safely. I think we should go to the Singapore model. I encourage y'all to study that too. That's what works. And George W. Bush tried to do that, and that was part of what really solely his political career, on top of the lies that were told about what was going on with the war he was trying to prosecute, and the deep state people that were forced on him in his cabinet by his father, who, to do the history on the man throughout his adult career before he entered politics, him and his father could stand each other. The man actually did want to go to Vietnam, but his father forced it to where he could only stay stateside, and it's dumb. And he really got the short end of the stick, because I do believe that he wasn't the bad man. I think he wanted to do the right things, but I think he was sandbagged so badly by the people around him associated with the deep state, his father, whom we know, if you really actually go and do the history on it, there was he made public thanks to his father, because nobody likes to see somebody disrespect their elders in the political realm. But yeah, that was a bad deal. He was the black sheep of that family. And anybody he knows anything or can remember anything from back in the day knows that. Okay? And they sandbagged him really bad. Just like they tried to sandbag Donald Trump in his first term, too. And if you do the research on that, I think you'll find that I was right. Okay. There's a part of me that really feels for the man. There's a part of me that's a little upset at him too, because I think he could have made a lot more forceful stands, and in doing so, he probably would have salvaged his reputation. But I don't think at the time he felt he was able to do that and come out on top. It's just the way that it is. That's unfortunate. So, this is my opinion on domestic violence is a problem in this country. Okay? But I'm going to submit this, okay? And this goes back to the Fraud Against Men Act. It is just as violent for a woman to mentally and emotionally torture a man, to where he's put in a position to where he either has to internalize this and it destroys him from within, even to the point of self-deletion, or he has to externalize it and then it becomes a violent situation. So, okay, let's keep the Violence of Women, or Violence Against Women Act on the board. Let's do that. But likewise, alongside of that, the Fraud Against Men Act also needs to be employed with equal force. So, let's say, for example, we do have a domestic situation and the police arrive to investigate. Guess what? Even if the man has to be pulled out of that situation and put in a cell to cool down for a little bit and needs to be prosecuted for assault. I'm not talking about 100% of the cases, because there are some dudes that are just sick and out of control. Got it. But in the lion's share of the cases, the dude is just pushed to the point to where he just fucking loses it. Okay? And in these lion's share of cases, this needs to be investigated. And if it's found that this dude was provoked to that point, then yeah, she needs to face charges just as stiff and just as destructive, with the same types of consequences as he does. Absolutely. And it needs to be made known that, ladies, if you do push this to this type of a head, and it is discovered that you played just as much of a role in this as they did, that you face the same type of consequences. Maybe then there will be enough stick and carrot to rein some of this back in, because I will tell you what, as a man who was victim of somebody's false accusations to the point to where it has affected my life with long-lasting results and implications. Notice I said accusations. Yeah. It's, I think that this definitely needs to come down, because men destroying women's lives and women destroying men, it needs to stop. Going both ways. Both ways. And I think there needs to be very stiff ramifications going both ways. So absolutely keep the violence against women act up. But there needs to be something just as forceful in regards to the misbehavior of women as well, in regards to how they treat men. Absolutely. So this is AL-BINO. That's my thoughts for the week. You guys be safe, be warm. Godspeed. Y'all have a great day. AL-BINO signing out.